10 seconds.
Okay.
Say it's live.
Hey, hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another session of Startup Buzz, hosted by the CII Western Region Startups Subcommittee. This evening we have Smith and Devyani. As you know, we do this session every Thursday, 5 p.m. So we are here again for what I think will turn out to be an interesting discussion between the two of them. So, what I'm going to do now, Smith, I'm going to leave it to you without further ado. You could introduce yourself and Devyani and, kick off the session. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of interesting questions from the audience as well. Over to you, Smith and Devyani.
Super. Thank you so much, Ravikant. Appreciate it. Hey guys, so we have Devyani with us. I'm Smith Mehta. I'm an associate at 100x VC and currently managing the portfolio here at 100x. And Devyani, if you could just introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Arrowhead. Bit of background about myself. I grew up in Malaysia, spent about 18 years of my life there. Then studied in the US, so studied at the Wharton Business School undergrad, and then worked with the Boston Consulting Group for many years. So worked with BCG across the US, Australia, and in India, largely in the BFSI space itself. And then decided I wanted to do something bigger, start my own company, and hopefully build the best company in whatever I'm building in. And so decided to make the move to found my own company after that. So now building Arrowhead, where we're building voice AI bots for the largest banks and BFCs and fintechs in India and globally.
Super. Thanks. Thanks for the introduction, Devyani, and so good to have you here. So just to start off, all of us know that every deck that you make or every deck that I see as a VC, we always see a word called AI. Mostly it's another Indian who's doing it, but otherwise there's amazing people like Devyani who've been building models or working with models and creating the best outcome for their customers. So, Devyani, just to get into understanding about Arrowhead, why and what got you to building Arrowhead and why voice agents?
Yeah, definitely. So there are two main aspects that contributed to voice AI specifically, or us choosing to build in voice AI, right? One was the technological shift that happened globally that enabled us to create voice bots that were so human-like to the point where you can hardly even differentiate between them. And the second is the market opportunity. So I'll deep dive into both of these, but from a technology perspective, in the last few years, there have been four major technology shifts that have happened, which have enabled us to do this. Number one, large language models that help us understand natural speech. Neural models is number two, that enable us to build bots that sound so human-like and can convert speech to text. Number three is just the cost to operate these. So you guys might have also seen that the cost of a voice AI bot per minute has plummeted over the last year and a half. And it's because we've been able to get cheaper models. We've been able to optimize infrastructure better. We've been able to get GPUs at cheaper rates, which enable us to cater to much more cost-conscious markets. And finally is the ability to kind of connect all of these and scale this in a way that is deployable in production itself. Earlier, automation was very IVR focused, and now we're moving towards these voice AI bots because of these four technological shifts. And when these come together, it creates a market opportunity that we're seeing in India today, where costs are about 1/3 the cost of a human agent. And India being a very cost-sensitive market and very operationally inefficient, if you can create something that's cheaper without the operational inefficiency of having a 1,000, 2,000 person calling team, it tends to be a no-brainer for organizations. And so voice AI itself isn't new. What's new for the first time is that it's good enough, fast enough, and cheap enough all at once for us to be able to deploy this.
Got it. Understood. And why did like voice agents in general make sense, right? But then at the end of the day, we are trying to build businesses. So why did you choose BFSI as a sector, and what specific problem in BFSI are you trying to solve?
Yeah, so I think I'll break that into two questions. So the question number one is, do you even choose to verticalize in a specific sector? Or do you choose to be a very horizontal voice AI company? And then the number two is, if you choose to verticalize, which industry do you verticalize in? So, number one, the reason that we are very bullish on verticalization is because you're able to create much better intelligence when you're very focused on a specific use case. So, ultimately, do you want to become a mid tier converting bot across 50 different use cases, or do you want to become a very high converting bot across five? And we want to be the latter because we want to be the obvious choice when someone thinks, hey, I need a voice AI bot for my collections or my loan sales use case at this bank. And they will always choose the best, right? So whoever is able to drive the highest conversions, that's who ends up getting that contract. And so we believe verticalization is the way to do that. Also, from a branding perspective, a bank is going to go with the best voice AI bot for banks. So very compliant, very use case specific, and has the credibility to have worked with other banks before. So that's why we chose to verticalize. And then the question that you're asking is, why banks in particular, why banking sector? Number one, the market size is the largest for this. So in India alone, it's a $3 billion market size just for voice AI for the BFSI sector. Number two, we believe it enables much more stickiness when you work with this sector, because you have to go through infosec approvals that take 3-4 months to get through. There's lots of deep integrations you have to build with their CRM, with their dialer, and with their data systems, that require a lot of time from both parties. And ultimately, because of this, there's a lot more friction for them to switch out to someone else. So because of these two reasons, we decided we wanted to verticalize in BFSI.
This is interesting how you speak about the integrations and moving, because like most startups have been struggling to get that first bank, right? And you said like if you worked with previous banks, they have a much more comfort with you working with the next bank. So two questions here. First is, how did you get your first bank to sign in a letter or whatever LOI with you to work with you? Because they are kind of going to be your design partners to help you build out your product out much better, as well as, I mean, okay, let's start there and then we can go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So the story of how we got our first large client was actually, one of our first ones was Aditya Birla Capital, which is arguably one of the largest NBFCs in India today. And the way we got it is quite funny. We were an early stage startup, not a lot of banking clients at that time. We had some enterprise clients, but not a lot in the banking space. The way we got it was, I had gone to this fintech conference, and there was a panel that was happening. At the end of that panel, they asked, does anyone have any questions? I got up and I said, hey, so they were talking about Gen AI essentially in India. I said, hey, I'm the founder of Arrowhead. We're building voice AI bots for India. Question that most people think of voice AI as a cost center. How do we move that thinking to a revenue center? Because we have been able to drive conversion rates up to 45% higher than human agents. And in that moment, all 300 people in that room knew what I was building, knew how good our bot was, and knew that we were potentially open to business, right? And it was a room of 300 people in BFSI because it was a fintech conference. So after that, I actually had a couple of folks from Aditya Birla Capital come up to us to explore working together. That was our first touch point with them. After that, and what's great about BFSI in India is that it's a very meritocratic system, meaning that the best wins. So they did a POC with 6-7 different vendors. We came out as the number one in that POC. So we had the best spot according to them from a latency, human likeness perspective, conversion perspective. And so we actually won the contract across their entities because of that. So that's what got us our first client. And then once you have it there, like capital, it's much easier to then capitalize on other banks and NBFCs as well.
Understood. See, what you just said is your story, right? Like a story which you put out, which had your problem solution, how you helped them out. It's again the story, which worked for you as a client, which you were pitching to a client and it worked for you. But then you also raised a lot of capital. So the VC is looking at it as a different perspective. You as a founder are trying to solve a problem at the core where you want to build certain things internally. And then the fourth is the customer here it's the bank, but the end user of the bank who is going to be actually engaging with the bot, they have certain expectations. Now there's four different stakeholders which you're working with, and the story for each could be different or could be the same. How did you navigate that part of it, and what did you push out to each one of them which has worked well for you?
Yeah, so each stakeholder is very different in what they're looking for, like you rightly said. So, any customer who you're talking to, I mean, that's just a different ballgame. I mean, ideally, they don't even know you're an AI company that's talking to them, right? So, you're ideally a human calling agent that's talking to them. So, I think that's falls in a very different bucket. Ultimately, for banks, if you're selling to them, what they're looking for is someone who's compliant. So, is security is the topmost concern for them. RBI can close them down if they do anything that's against the guidelines, right? So we have to be very, very careful to be compliant with all of their policies. So they need someone that's compliant. And because of that, they look for folks that have already worked with other banks and NBFCs because they've already been guinea pigs to validate that someone like Arrowhead is someone who is suitable to work with. So for banks, they look for compliance and credibility. For investors, they look for traction and customer love being a byproduct of traction. So and it was interesting when we were raising our latest round, our investors did due diligence calls with almost all of our customers, and we didn't even know that. So we had given some list, but they went over and above and did it, with a bunch more of our customers. And they actually said that this was one of the best customer diligences they had ever done. That the customer feedback is usually very mediocre, that our customers just raved about the way that we work on the product itself. And so that's what investors want is, do you actually have customers that are willing to pay? Because India is a very difficult market to extract money in. If you can extract money in India, you can likely do it anywhere else. So I think that's what, we've seen investors look at.
So, interestingly, you spoke about doing few small enterprises initially before you went to the bank, which would be when you tested out your product, you tested out some of the data that you've already had. A lot of the early stage startups have been struggling with where do you get the data from? How do you work with the models which already exist, or how do you actually build your models currently? Maybe voice or maybe any other AI startup for that matter, right? What are the initial seeds that you saw for you to build out an AI company in India or in general?
So there are three types of AI companies. One is your foundational layer. These are the companies that actually build your very large models from scratch. Think 11 Labs, Smallest, Anthropic, OpenAI, Sarvam, etc. Right? So that's number one. Your second bucket is your app layer. So these are companies like us who serve end enterprises. So we sell to business teams. The number one bucket sells to tech teams, right? So we sell to business teams, which is a customized solution, leveraging the models that are available, and packaging it and developing on top of it in a way that creates value for the end customer. The third is your ML ops. So these are the companies that actually audit and assess how good are these AI models that we're using in-house and that these foundational model companies are using as well, right? So I think a misconception of what people think you need to do as a number two bucket, which is the app layer. People think, oh, you need to build your own models to be successful. And that's actually not true. Today, OpenAI has raised billions of dollars, right? So why would I, as a small company, try and compete with them to build my own LLMs when they have already built something that is that's functioning so well? OpenAI, Anthropic, etc. Right? So instead of building my own models, what I can do is build an orchestration layer that leverages the advantages and disadvantages of every model. So instead of me being tied to one model, I can actually use 5 different models and decide when to pick and choose each of these based on the part of the call, based on the use case, based on the language. And that's a much better way to operate than being tied down to a single model, which oftentimes when you're building your own models, people tend to do.
Sure. But then, since you are dependent on so many models, every day they are training it in a different format. You're having different logics which or algorithms which they are working on, right? So you to know what they are best at, and then you orchestrating sometimes could also create everyday churn for you to keep changing your algorithms, your orchestration, which you spoke about. How do you guys manage that at scale?
So people ask, what is it that will enable you to be a very successful company in 5 to 10 years? And some people think it's product. And if I build a good product today, I will be successful in 5 to 10 years. Like you said, technology is changing so rapidly that a product today is going to be obsolete in a few months. And so, actually, what enables me to be successful in 5 to 10 years is the DNA of my team and my ability to experiment and iterate based on everything that's launching on a daily basis. So that what you're describing is an advantage for us because we have that DNA to experiment, iterate on these models, decide what works and doesn't work. And if you look like when someone launches a model, my CTO is sometimes the first person to comment on that launch and say, hey, how do we get this into our infrastructure? And it's this that enables us to always be at the forefront of technology and of innovation.
Got it. But so, as you said, like all these models are available and everybody to use. And of course, you said your team is one of the best reasons you are able to scale. There's a lot of talent available. There's a lot of companies trying to solve the same problem. How do you stand out as a company? And how do I think about this from an early stage to going to at least like a series A, right? After that, there's more processes and things which come in. But like from the early stage to getting to that level where I have certain large clients, like 5 to 6 enterprise clients, in that stage, there's a lot of companies fighting with each other. How do I stand out there?
2 ways: product and GTM. Number one on product, we at Arrowhead had consistently won every POC we've competed in, and every POC we've done has converted to a go live contract. And so when people think, oh, products like this are so commoditized, they're actually not. You still see a marginal difference between the best products and the mediocre products. And the proof is in the pudding that there are 1, 2 products or companies that tend to win these POCs. So product is a very big factor. And like I mentioned, one of the big factors to you building a good product is your ability to experiment and your ability to just think from first principles, not take things at face value. Number 2, like I was saying, was GTM. GTM means your ability to move very quickly in a market that is moving very quickly. This is a land grab market that you have to make sure you get into every single company or else you're too late. And once you get into the company, how do you service them? Do you work with them on a daily basis to make the iterations? Are you on call for these enterprise clients? Enterprises want a very white glove way of working. They want to think that they are the only customer you are working with, even though that's of course not true. But you have to make them feel that way. So service and product are the 2 factors that enable you to create customer love that will enable you to scale in the future.
A lot of the VCs really hate having service aspect to a business, to a startup specifically currently, because that's what we've learned in the US, right? We don't want to push as many people to the problem. How can a product really scale? And then product wise, selling it. Has that worked in India, or is it really very people driven sales that happens here?
Globally, if you are enterprise first, you will always have people that are servicing every team. So as an example, even your infra companies, they have like tiers for customer support, right? If I'm using a deep grab at the highest tier, I have dedicated support that gives me 2-hour tat on my responses. So regardless of what company you are at enterprise level, you have to service the clients that you're working with. And that is actually an advantage because that enables us to be able to have higher stickiness with the clients that we're working with. If it's so not low touch, that means that it's very easy for them to replace you with someone else. When you have people, you build a relationship, they know you as people and not just a product, and the stickiness is much higher then.
Okay, understood. Just a curious question. Do you guys have an internal agent that you use for your own sales to these banks?
So you can use agents in lots of ways. We do build our own agents to be able to identify who our key ICPs are within these banks, to be able to automate a lot of the follow-ups, to identify who to follow up with. So we have a lot of these now that Claude Cowork has launched, a lot of these projects that essentially run on automations on a daily, weekly basis, right? But ultimately, conversations are still human. You can't use an agent to do your pitch call. Funnily enough, I have been on pitch calls where people ask me, am I a bot and not a human? So, contrary to what people think, I am a human doing that pitch call, not a bot. And you cannot automate that with an agent today. But yeah, for the initial legwork, we do use agents for that.
Interesting. And has it worked? What is the efficiency on that? Has that worked for you? With the initial segment of having bots actually work and do some of your sales for you? Because you're selling to someone who is like so high stake, right? So how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're not automating the conversations themselves. You're automating a lot of the legwork and research that goes into having those conversations. So, what a BDR would traditionally do, a business development representative, they would research who are the top companies I want to reach out to. Within that, who is the head of personal loans? Who is the head of collections? Within that, what has that person posted about recently that I can send a message, personalized message about to them to increase my response rate. And then once I've sent that message, who are the people I have to follow up with? And now sending messages to follow up. All of that doesn't require face to face conversations. Those can
Okay.
be completely automated with agents. So now instead of having a team of, let's say, 10 SDRs or BDRs, you have a team of one or two. So it enables you to be much more efficient and increase your productivity significantly.
Interesting. Uh, a key aspect of building a company out is the people you work with internally. With all these things, as you said, your CTO is so excited about every new development and how you can use it best. How do you keep your team motivated to the goal of building a large enterprise yourself from an early
Yeah,
stage?
it's a great question. Yeah, definitely. The biggest motivator for anyone at an early stage is customers. If customers and there are moments where our customers will say, "This is the best spot we've ever seen," and we'll show that to our team, like a customer saying that. Those moments where the customer tells us, "You have beat human conversions," the moment where a customer says, "You won this POC," those are the largest motivations for any team. Because imagine, I mean, last year we were a 10-person team working with the likes of your Aditya Birla, Upgrad, Tata 1mg, now Axis, companies like this, right? For such a small, young, nascent team to be working with the largest enterprises, it's almost unheard of for people who are in their early 20s to be able to directly be communicating with VPs at these large banks. And so this empowerment that we give them is because of the results that we see with our bot and that they're creating. And that is the ultimate motivator: customer satisfaction, customer love.
Interesting. Interesting. Have since you're building in this phase, I think you've grown a little ahead, and a lot of founders who would be around you, who would be reaching out to you, uh, on like what do they start, where do they start, what do they do first? What would be certain things you talk to them about when they're just starting out? Maybe students, maybe people who are in their later age, but coming back to seeing, getting excited about AI. How do they get into it, have more knowledge, and then build it right rather than just getting into it just because everyone's doing it? How do you get into this in a right process for them?
Yeah. Coming from someone who has pivoted twice in my startup journey, um, the importance of choosing the right problem statement is very high. And it's easy to choose something because you're passionate about it, but it's another thing to choose something because there's an actual need for it. And passion does not always equate to need. This is something that I realized early on, right? I think the first app I built was a productivity app where it was during COVID, meetings were a distraction for everyone, online meetings. And I was like, how can we optimize this process? But you realize, okay, paying for meeting productivity is probably not something that a lot of companies would be willing to do. And so we realized that we ended up pivoting to something else. But my point is that I think with voice AI, what's been great is that it's not a problem statement that you have to sell these enterprises on. Every enterprise already knows they want this. It's just a question of, can you sell them that you are the right one to work with them? So if you're able to identify a problem statement where there is already a very large demand in the market, and it's a very nascent market. With Voice AI, I'm not selling a replacement product. I'm actually selling the first product that you're going to use for Voice AI. Replacement selling is much more difficult because, like I mentioned, once you're in the bank, you've already gone through infosec integrations that it's very unlikely they're going to replace you, right? So finding a nascent market, but also a very high demand market, those are the two aspects I would look at for any problem statement. And then obviously being passionate and interested about it, interested in is the cherry on top that will keep you motivated to keep on building.
Interesting. And a lot of people have been debating about will AI replace us in a job? Probably even your employees are worried about it. But how far are we from it, or are we even going there?
AI enables people to be much more productive. What that means is it's not that we are going to replace jobs, it's that we will get significantly more output for the same number of people. And job markets also shift, right? So as you have more AI models, you need more people in law building laws around AI. You need more people in, like I mentioned, the third layer of the AI companies, which is your ML ops, to be able to evaluate AI models. So job markets shift, and it's not, again, it's not that we're replacing people, it's that we're able to generate significantly more output with the same number of people.
Okay. And have you, I mean, I'm assuming there would be few clients which would have drop off with probably a better product, or probably uh, some compliance or something else, right? Some revenue, internal market changes. How have you predicted that churn, or probably someone said a no to you? How have you worked around that when someone tells you a no? Does that aggravate you even more to go and sell them again? Or how do you look at that when somebody says no?
Till date, we have never lost a client. A client has not churned. And like I mentioned, every POC we have won. The only times where we decide very early on not to work with a client, so this is not like we've even started the POC, is when costing is just such a significant barrier where their perception, our perception is so drastically different. But till date, the first two have not happened. So touch wood that that's not happened, and fingers crossed that that won't happen in the future.
Interesting. Love that. When you've got such good track record, does it scare you though? Does it scare you? What is next? Where are we going? does that whole fictional world worry you ever as a founder?
A friend once told me, this is before I was building in voice AI, and I basically spoke to one of my friends who runs a $500 million startup, so way more successful. And I was telling him, I haven't found PMF. Like, what am I doing? This is so stressful. And he said to me, Viviani, as you grow and as you scale and as you raise more, I guarantee you your stress is only going to increase and your problems will only increase. And it's very difficult to internalize that when it's you're in survival mode, or is this product even going to work? Now that we've somewhat scaled a little bit, obviously still very early, but now that we've scaled, I understand what he means. And you have much more to lose now, right? Like, I think you asked me what happens if a client churns. That hasn't happened yet, but you have to do a lot to ensure that that doesn't happen. So, you have bigger teams to manage, you have more processes to create, you have culture that can get very diluted at your company. So all of these are things that you have to now think about when you're in that 10 to 100 vicinity, that can create a lot more challenges. So yeah, I mean, I hope that answers your question.
Sure. What are some things which probably three or four things which you would love for a new age founder to have? Sorry, let me put it the other way. What mistakes do you see with elder folks who are getting into AI? They don't really understand what the new age world really wants.
So I don't know if you saw this one video at the India AI Summit where Sam Altman actually said one thing people getting into AI should never do is they should never listen to older people who are talking about AI. And he said this more from a perspective of uh, the ability to change with the times, because we, like, younger people have grown up with technology. They're much more adaptive and agile, whereas maybe people of other generations are now developing that agility to do that. I don't think there's anything like older people have more challenges and younger people, etc. It's more just you have to be adaptive to what is happening, and it's easier for people who have grown up with technology to do that. But on the other hand, interestingly, YC has done this analysis of their cohort of founders, and they found the most successful founders are older founders. And it's because of their ability to, their maturity of building teams, of managing teams, of not being reactive when challenges come up, of expecting challenges because they've been through all of these hills, ups and downs, slaps during their startup journey. So I think there are like pros and cons of each age generation, and it's more being cognizant of what that is and having people who can balance that out. So if you're older founders and you need more new age employees, you hire for that. If you're a very young founder and you need people who have experience in building and scaling teams, you hire for that. So as long as you have a balanced team that has that skill set, I think you'll be fine.
Nice. And a lot of the times when we start off, we end up doing a lot more features. And even at your scale, right? As a builder, whoever's in the tech team, they're going to want to like ship products every day. That is where their dopamine hits come from. So how do you kind of navigate that, right, as a founder, as a CEO, where you're looking at the customer first? What is that interesting aspect of sharing conversations where you are not only just shipping features, but actually creating revenue-based products?
Everything you ship has to link to something for the customer. So one of the key tenets that I always live by, and I tell my team as well, is that you always have to do right by the customer. That doesn't mean the customer is always right. Sometimes the customer is not right and you need to push back on that, but you always have to do right by them. And doing right by them, it penetrates every single aspect of your company. One of the big parts of that is your product planning, right? So what do I decide to ship? Do I decide to ship dark mode because I want my internal employees to be able to, have a better experience in using my internal tools, which is also important? Or do I prioritize a feature of reducing my latency for my bot because customers are dropping off and hence impacting my conversion rates? Ultimately, anything that impacts customers is always prioritized. And that's how I think about it. And if you do that, you will almost never go wrong.
Interesting. So just few quick questions, probably one-word answers for you. What is that one thing over this journey till now, which has been like a magic moment for you? Like this came in the world, and I just because of this, like everything changed.
Yeah, so I would say my journey has been one that's been full of ups and downs, to say the least. So I actually had a different co-founder before this. Then, things didn't work out and we parted ways. And this is after we had raised our pre-seed round. And I think the magic moment for me in my startup journey was finding my current CTO and tech co-founder, Vengat, because truly, I think that that's what changed the trajectory of Arrowhead. He's one of the best people I've ever worked with. He's one of the most brilliant tech minds I've ever met. And I often say finding a co founder is more difficult than finding a life partner because you're working with them way more than you're probably seeing anyone else, right? So your working styles really have to mesh as well. And I think, I don't know if I'll call it luck, serendipity, fate, what it is, but it's been just a blessing to have for us to have found each other as co-founders and working together now. So that is the magic moment that I think has completely changed Arrowhead.
Lovely, lovely. Love hearing these kind of stories, which really motivate more and more people to start building, right? And the touch in the AI world is what we all look for when things are moving out of the human side. Just another one, if you had to pick up a real mode for an AI startup, would it be data distribution or domain expertise or something else? What wins?
Always distribution.
So the market, you all need hungry customers. Um, what is one mistake all founders have been making while pitching AI to investors?
Uh, AI is AI is a means to an end. It should never be the end in and of itself. I think people like to use the buzzword of AI in a lot of things, but sometimes you don't even need AI to make things happen, right? So I can actually just use an Excel sheet and get as much ROI as I would using, an AI generated sheet. So I think that's the biggest thing. Don't just slap on the key term. Really understand what is the problem statement you're trying to solve, and then what are the steps that you need to get there. And if AI is one of them, fantastic.
What is one mistake you're doing while doing a product demo was in a sales call versus doing it to an investor?
Sorry, can you repeat that to me? You said what is one mistake?
Like difference between doing a product demo for an investor versus doing it for a customer.
I don't think there's any difference there. So ultimately, your investors want to, your goal with your customers is to wow them in what can potentially, and allow them to see that ray of hope of what they could see in production. Your investor's job is to see, what do your customers see? If I were to put myself in the shoes of your customer, would I be blown away? So I actually don't think there's anything different between a demo for investors as a demo for a customer.
So just one last parting question. What is one AI trend which everybody thinks is the next thing and you think it's like really overrated?
Um, I, I think the whole AI assistant that people are trying to build with their day-to-day, day-to-day work, I think now Claude Cowork has just taken over that. But people are still trying to build like AI assistants to help me with certain tasks, right? To book a flight, to do this, etc. Um, I think there's just too much cardinality in what people can do. So there are companies building these AI assistants, but if you see the variety of tasks that they give them, from ask someone to hang up a painting in my house, to book this hair appointment, to get a refund on my flight, you need different workflows for each and every one of them. That it's very difficult to say that, hey, I'm going to become your end all be all AI assistant. So I think that is a very overestimated space of what can actually be accomplished. You may be able to get to like 50% of tasks completed, but then you're not my end all be all AI assistant. So that's a space that I'm actually slightly bearish on, at least for the near term.
Super. Thanks a lot, Devyani. Appreciate you helping us navigate through this crazy world that we're going into and already in. We don't know since when Instagram, probably AI, the backend, what they've been using and turning our brains into what we are right now. But appreciate it. Love the call. Thanks for everybody who joined in. This happens every Thursday at 5 p.m. Look forward to having more people join in. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.